We are all this tripartite or this triad as a being. We are the essence with a physical body and a spiritual body. The problem with the physical body is that it is perishable. It not only changes in time, which also happens to the spiritual body, it also changes, it evolves, but the physical body degrades. So when we lose the physicality, when we lose the physical body, what happens is that we go back to the spiritual realm. We go back, and from a tripartite or a triad, we become a dyad. So the loss or death of the physicality moves us back into the spiritual realm. And this is very important for us, spiritists, because we believe that we do not die. Since we are the essence, abbreviated the spirit, but the essence, we are not the perispirit, we are not the physical body. We are the essence, and the essence always remains. Whether we have a physical body like this, or after this physical body perishes, dies, we are always there as the essence, represented by the essence. So we are, in this sense, immortal. We have no end. And this already is a form of consolation in itself. Because if I am represented, or everything that represents me is in the essence, and the essence does not die, it means that I continue on being always what I am today and more, because I learn, I evolve, I progress. The idea of this three-part body or this triad is very important while we are here, while we have this physical body. And the most important relationship is going to happen between the spiritual body, our perispirit, and the physical body, the body that we have here on planet Earth, on this physical plane. And why is that so important? Well, let us look what happens. Here I have my perispirit, or my spiritual body, or your perispirit, or your spiritual body, which I will always display as much as I can with this fuzziness around it. And then we have our physical body. And what we see is that there is a relationship between the two. When we take the book Evolution in Two Worlds by André Luiz, and I just want to say, I may mention a few times that the book is by André Luiz, but actually, André Luiz brought the book to us. It is very much like the dictation of a dictation, because the book was put together by spiritual echelons, very high order spirits, and was a group of them. André Luiz amassed the information and passed it on to Valdo Vieira and Francisco Xavier, the mediums that actually worked in collaboration to bring us the book, to bring us the message. And when we look at the evolution in two worlds, starting from chapter 3 until chapter 14 for sure, but even in the other chapters, um, there's quite a lot of information. But in these 12 chapters I mentioned, from third chapter to the 14th chapter, André Luiz discourses about the relationships. Everything in our physical body finds actually an origin, a root in the perispirit, in the spiritual body. We have copies of the cells of our physical body in the spiritual body. We have copies of their organelles. We have copies of their components in that spiritual body. And it's through this link that is at the molecular level that the perispirit or spiritual body conveys information to the physical body. But there is one very important difference that we must mention right now. In the perispirit or spiritual body, there is more than there is in the physical body. The perispirit amasses more information, more structures than the physical body. Let us see if we can understand it with an example. Imagine that you, as a person, you are a perispirit. And now you are going to work as an actor or actress in a play. And the persona, your character in this play, this persona is actually your physical body. So you, the actor, you are the perispirit or spiritual body. But your character in the play is your physical body. For instance, now you may know 2 or 3 different languages. You may know English, you may know Russian, you may know Japanese. But when you go into this play, your character in the play, the one you are playing, only speaks English. So even though you have all of this other extra information, you know 2 other languages beside English, in the play, if you want to be a good actor or a good actress, you only speak in English. Or you may speak with a particular accent just because of the play. This is the difference between the perispirit / spiritual body and the physical body. The physical body is a lot more limited. It is that which we need at this moment for this play on which we are acting. This is a stage, as Shakespeare once said, the world's a stage. This is a stage. It's the stage of our education. And every time we come to the physical realm, every time our spiritual body creates a physical body for us, every time this happens, we take on a role, a character, and we have to play to act accordingly. So all the information, the resources, all the abilities that we have in our perispirit, in our spiritual body, do not get transferred to the physical body. Only a few, those few which we are going to need and we are going to use in our role in this current reincarnation. But as I said, there is this relationship that you see here, schematically, of course, with these lines. So everything, even from the structure of the physicality, has a correspondence in the perispirit. And with that alone, we begin to realize slowly at first that perhaps, just perhaps, what our physical bodies go through may also actually be happening in the spiritual realm at the spiritual body, at the level of the spiritual body. And just perhaps when we speak of conditions of the physical body, perhaps these conditions are happening as a result of something that is happening with our spiritual body. And we are going to see this a little further. So what are the consequences of these interactions between the spiritual body and the physical body, these links that I showed you before? Well, for one, it is the spiritual body is the model for my body. We actually call this the biology organizing model, BOM. The spiritual body, the perispirit, is the model upon which we are going to work to create a physicality, to create a physical body. All of this, of course, is always under the control of the essence. It is the essence that has the intelligence. It is the essence that manifests, expresses that intelligence. But like I said initially, today we're not going to be focusing on that side, on the quintessential side of ourselves. We are going to focus on the difference or the interface between spiritual body and physical body. And whether the essence, and despite the essence being the owner of all the actions, the one that expresses, manifests all the intelligence, we are going to keep in mind that is the spiritual body, the perispirit, that leads to the construction of a physical body. So let me show you here with three examples, very, very simple. When we are very young as spirits, are still very ignorant, and I represent this with this figure here for my perispirit as a caveman. And now I'm going to say I, just so no one feels insulted. So I, as the caveman, when I am very primitive, I have a very primitive perispirit. My perispirit can never give rise to a physical body that is better than the perispirit itself. The creator can only create a masterpiece that is compatible with his or her own capabilities. When we speak of God, the creator of all things, of course, the creation is perfect. But we, as very naive, incipient, ignorant, whenever we create something as simple as a recipe, for instance, as simple as a piece of art, it is not going to be perfect. And it will reflect the level, the extent of our intelligence at the moment. So at this moment in my life, in my spiritual life, I have a very backwards, very ignorant, very primitive perispirit or spiritual body, which I represent here with this figure of a caveman. I call this jokingly, of course, the Ooga Booga stage of my evolution. And when that perispirit decides to put together a physicality, it does so, and that is a reincarnation process. And when it does it, it will create a human form that will resemble as close as possible the abilities of that perispirit, that spiritual body. So the human form will also be in its Ooga Booga, as I call it, stage. Will also be primitive, naive, ignorant. I'm going to use ignorant here in the strict, usual sense of the word, not the colloquial sense, ignorant in the sense of stupid. No, ignorance in the sense of lack of knowledge, simply like that. So, as my perispirit in its primitive state creates a human form, that human form is also primitive until the time comes to reincarnate. It puts together the physicality and then we reincarnate. And as a reincarnation process, our physical body is that of a primitive. Here, just represented by this primitive man or caveman. One interesting thing is that now, in this human form, my spirit manifests itself in the physical realm. And throughout these manifestations, throughout the experiences that the spirit has in the physical realm, the perispirit is taking pictures, is even making a movie, all right? Is recording, registering everything that the spirit does in the human form, in the physical form, with the physical body. But like I said before, unfortunately, the physical body has a shelf life, rather limited shelf life, and the physical body eventually perishes. When it perishes, then we call this the discarnation process, which is nothing more than the death of the physical body. Now, for a new reincarnation process, notice the figure that I have for the perispirit. This perispirit has learned something from that physical body that it used before, that it created before. I hope you remember that the first perispirit that I had was in the form of a caveman, with the representation of a caveman. Look at this one now. This one has a toolbox and a hammer. It has better tools to build a new physical body. And it has better tools because it learned from the previous reincarnation process. So now when this perispirit, my perispirit, now upgraded, updated, improved, somewhat developed, not as ignorant as before, when this one now addresses a physicality, tries to create a physicality, it will do so with a little bit better, tools. So you can see now that the human form it's putting together is no longer that of a primitive man. And there's going to be another reincarnation process. And in this new reincarnation process, now I no longer look like a primitive person, but I have a tie and a briefcase. So there has been some development, some progress. While this new human form in this new reincarnation process works, lives, interacts, the perispirit that was responsible for putting it together continues to register, continues to take notes of all the experiences that the human form goes through in the physical plane. Much like in the previous one, but the more evolved the human form is, the more experiences it collects. And the more experiences it collects, the more experiences are registered by the perispirit, which means that that perispirit evolves even more because there are more experiences being added to what it already knows. But as I said, human forms, physical bodies, physicalities have a limited lifespan. And even an advanced life form like this one here will also perish, and there will be a discarnation process as well. But that's not a problem because that perispirit continue to gain more and more information throughout the process. And now it's even better equipped to create the third one. See, now it's even like a construction person with, not just one, not only with a hammer and a toolbox, but an entire construction plan for the new reincarnation process. This is an even better spirit or spiritual body than the two before, than the two we saw before. And when it tries to put together, it puts together a form that is even more elegant, more artistic, let's put it this way. But listen to this word artistic in here in its figurative sense. The idea is that the physical form is going to be better, is going to have better tools to work when it comes to the physical realm. There is going to be another reincarnation process, and in this reincarnation process, we'll fulfill all the needs that our essence have, and we'll get our golden star. And if this is the last one, we will no longer need to reincarnate. And when this last human form, this last physicality has lived all its experiences, which by the way are also being registered, photographed, so to speak, by its spiritual body. When this last human form, physicality, is accomplished, we no longer have a need to reincarnate. And when it passes on, when it dies as well, we go back and we live as spirits, as essence and a spiritual body. We are far from this. The idea here is not to give you a timeline when this is going to happen. I only represented 3 reincarnation processes, and we all know that we have had thousands of them, thousands of these reincarnation processes, and we're going to have even more in the future. But it's to give us an idea that every time our physicality is here present in the physical realm, the number one, that it was put together by our perispirit, that our perispirit retains a copy of the plans with it. And through this plan, this copy, this draft, this blueprint, the perispirit interacts with the human form, the physical form, the physicality. So everything that we are here in the physicality, in the physical form, came from the spiritual body, the perispirit, who retains the blueprints, and with the blueprints maneuvers us, changes us, works with us, acts upon us the whole time. And why is that so important? Well, it is important because now we see that our spiritual body, perispirit, is in constant handshaking with the human form, with the physical body. Without this constant handshake, there will be no way for the spirit, or the essence actually, for the essence to learn while here in the physical realm with the physicality. The perispirit acts as a link, and it's the material link. So it is always in great contact, in constant handshake with the physical form. And this has tremendous consequences for us. This interaction that happens with every new reincarnation process and is pulled apart with the death of the physicality and reestablished once again in another reincarnation process. This interaction is why we must take care not only of our physical bodies, but also of our spiritual bodies, our perispirit. Because being the object that registers all our sensorial input, we, the physical bodies, we see, we taste, we touch, we smell, we hear, all of this is passed on to the perispirit, which process this information for the essence. Being this link, sensorial link, it comes to reason that perhaps things that we also sense in the human form, that we experience in the human form, are coming from this spiritual body, this perispirit, because the link goes in both directions. The physical body passes all the terrestrial physical sensations to the spiritual body, but the spiritual body passes commands back to the physical body. And this is where we see the practical aspects of the interaction between the two. So what can we say about the practicality? Well, the best thing to think about is in the case of a disease, of an infirmity. And here we are going to evaluate 4 different aspects, and we are going to see how important it is for us to address that spiritual body. Because a lot of what we go through here in the physical plane comes from the spirituality. We need to be very careful what we are saying, what we are addressing. For instance, if I step on a piece of metal that is rusting and I get a bacterium and I develop a particular infection, for instance, the bacterium is a physical object. The bacterium comes from the physical realm. But my lack of attention is part of my spiritual body. If I come to the physical realm, another example, and I develop diabetes, the predisposition for it comes from the spiritual body, from the perispirit. Whether I will develop the disease or not in the physical plane will depend on a lot of factors. One in particular, my eating habits, which are physical in its nature. But the predisposition comes from the spiritual realm, from the spiritual body. The physicality or the physical realm or even our physical bodies present the triggers. If we do not get the triggers, we may not develop it at all, but we still have the predisposition. So let us try to understand what this predisposition actually means. So let us think of an infirmity that can actually, if not taken care of, can be lethal, can be fatal. Let us look at how we behave towards an infirmity. The first one, I call your attention to the left upper quadrant, the one that is in orange. That is when we are going to die from that infirmity. Of course, we don't know that, okay? But this is the outlook that I'm creating. Also, throughout the process of the infirmity, the individual, I'm gonna say myself, I did not have a positive view of it. I was complaining, I was moaning and groaning the whole time. I was rude to everyone around me. So in this particular scenario, what I'm trying to describe is irritability, frustration with an infirmity, and a complete lack of forbearance. This is a very destructive approach to the infirmity. It's a destructive approach to the experience of the infirmity. But it's important that we understand what I mean by irritability and frustration. I do not mean that when you are in excruciating pain that you cannot utter an owie here or there. Of course you can. You are even allowed to cry. Remember, Christ also cried for us. So it is not an absence of emotions, a stoicism that is beyond being human. No, but it's that irritability. It's that idea of blaming everything and everyone, including God himself, about our difficulties. Remember, this infirmity started in our spiritual bodies. It started from our ignorance. And we allowed ourselves, while here in the physicality, to trigger it. We came with the predisposition, and here in the physicality, in the physical realm, we found a condition that triggered it. So what is happening when I have this particular type of approach? My vital fluid will be depleted. I will have, or I may irreparably damage my physicality to such a point that the physicality no longer can continue. And because throughout the experience of the infirmity, there was no forbearance, no understanding on my part, I passed on to my perispirit only negative forms of energy, of sensations. My perispirit, the originator of this infirmity or the predisposition to this infirmity, did not get repaired. So when I die of this disease or this infirmity, I am both a medical negative and a spiritual negative. A medical negative because as a patient I passed away, and spiritually I am a negative because I learned nothing from it. Or if I learned something very little, not as much as I could have learned to cure that perispirit, the origin, the root of that predisposition. Perhaps I died from an ulcer, but the ulcer was only the manifestation of the irascibility, of my irritability, of my lack of compassion that is in my perispirit, in my spiritual body. It's actually my essence, to be honest with you, but the essence passes it on to the perispirit, and the perispirit then relays that to the physical body. But let us see what happens when I have the same physical outcome, the death of the physicality, but throughout the infirmity, I have a positive outlook. That's scenario 1, 2, and I call your attention to the right upper corner in pink. Here, there is forbearance, there is understanding, but most importantly, there is faith. I have a constructive approach to the infirmity. So throughout the process, I bear with it. I moan when I'm in excruciating pain, but I do not moan and groan out of blasphemy. I moan because it's a physical pain that takes too much at times. And I cry also. I cry because we are all learning and sometimes it can be difficult. But I do not cry with the sentiment of vengeance that one day if I get better, I will avenge myself of all of those who caused this infirmity, because who is there to blame if not myself? That infirmity was the manifestation in the physical realm, but I brought it from the spiritual realm with me, with my spiritual body, because it was my spiritual body that was sick. In this case, I have a constructive approach. So my vital fluid may be depleted, or I may have irreparable damage to my physicality, which will pass away. But my perispirit is repaired. If I now have a new reincarnation process, I will no longer bring with me that predisposition. Francisco Xavier used to say, only my body, my physical body is sick. He had a lot of diseases, he had a lot of problems, but he was, in essence, in his spirit, a wonderful human being, a wonderful individual. In this case, when we have a constructive approach to the infirmity, we take the time to learn from it, the experience. We have still a negative in the medical field, but spiritually, we're a plus, we're a success, because I now have cured that which gave me the predisposition. My future reincarnations will not suffer from this particular problem. Let us now look at a less grim approach. Let us look now in the lower corner, okay, lower left corner, and see what happens when we do recover from an infirmity, but we still had a negative outlook throughout that process. Here, again, no resignation, great irritability, blasphemy. God is to blame for me to have this infirmity. But in this particular case, we recover. There was still enough vital fluid left in our physical bodies to maintain. There was no irreparable damage. It was reparable. It was repaired. Okay? So then we continue our physical life here in the physical realm. But again, the perispirit is not repaired. Much like the one in the left upper corner, all right? Because of our irritability, our blasphemy, our frustration, our destructive approach, our perispirit learned very little, if anything, from that experience. Here, doctors are going to call us a success. We are cured, apparently cured. That disease, that predisposition that we brought from the spiritual realm, can even manifest itself again here in this current reincarnation, as long as we find the trigger again, as long as we go back and we address that trigger again. The predisposition is still there because the perispirit, the spiritual body, was never cured. So spiritually, we are a failure. This is not the case in the right lower corner when we have resignation, when we have understanding, faith, constructive approach. We learn during that process, that experience, and then not only we have enough vital fluid to continue living in the physical realm, but our spiritual body, our perispirit is repaired. And here we are both successes, we're success with a success in both the medical realm, in the medical field, sorry, and in the spiritual sense of it. Because here we gain the cure, and it's a cure that will not come again because our predisposition has been eliminated. Spiritually, we are cured from it. This interconnection, this relationship between our spiritual body and the physical body is very important. We will reach a point where medicine will also address the other side, will give some credit to the other side. But right now, we still see things only from the physical point of view. And that is sometimes very destructive for us. Because especially when we are here in this lower left quadrant, when we get the cure here in the physical realm, but we learn very little from it, we are bound to repeat that mistake because we have not addressed the root, the cause of all that predisposition that will manifest, express itself again as soon as we find the trigger. So I hope this 4-scenario idea here helped you to understand a little bit more about the intricacies, about the connectivity between spiritual body and the physical body. And here I'm going to show you a very disturbing figure. This is us. This is all of us spiritists. We read, we study, we discuss, but when it comes to cut the branch, that's how we do it. And guess what is going to happen? I don't have to tell you, right? And what do I mean by this? We are still very bound to our physicalities. They are important. They are important. Our physical bodies are our most precious gift. Without it, we are not here. Without being here, we do not learn. At this stage of our evolution, a physicality is required, is mandatory. Without it, we do not develop, we do not progress. We need this physicality. We need the time in the physical realm. But we look only at the physicality. We address only the physicality. And why is that? Just because we are in the physical realm, we spiritists in particular, we no longer have this excuse anymore. We have the beautiful messages that we find in the gospel. And there's so many, so many. What is it that we have to do? We have to be more careful. We have to remove our brains from neutral and start paying more attention in how we live our lives. Especially now in this time of crisis. We complain so much. We are all tense. And yes, there is a reason to be tense. No one is making light of anything. But what will happen when we get out of it? Are we going to go back to our old ways, our old habits? Will we have learned anything, or will we have learned nothing from it? What is it that we are doing? Most of us, because of the pressures of daily, our daily routines, we go about our things, we go about our actions, our speech, our thought patterns automatically without paying attention. And that is the equivalent of sawing a branch from the wrong side. We also spend lots of times bombarding ourselves or allowing ourselves to be bombarded with information that we know does not come from a place that can be trustworthy. Why do we do such things? Why is it that when we read the gospel, for instance, we read and we do not put it in practice? And the spirits incessantly come and urge us. There are beautiful messages. We have the messages, for instance, in chapter 16 from the gospel, where we see when we cannot serve both God and mammon, saying that we have to all of us do our duties, do our part. It says in one particular point that it doesn't matter if, for instance, we are in a position of a servant and a boss is not a boss, or the one that is superior here in the sense of hierarchy, okay, not in the sense of moral development or intellectual development. When our superiors are not just, we still should do our job, we still should do our work, because we are going to learn from that work. Shirking from our responsibilities only makes it more difficult for us. And it is like sowing the branch from the wrong side. Sowing the branch from the wrong side. What am I saying to all of us here? That we should avoid this particular attitude, and we should remove ourselves from neutral and put our brains at least in first gear. Let us follow what Kardec told us. Let us be guided. Let rational faith guide us. Let rational faith guide us. Let us look for information when we want information from trustworthy sources. Let us not spread information when we don't understand what it is, because even if it is correct, since we do not understand, we pass it on, and we pass it on distorted. But what do we do with the information that we have? Do we implement new things? Do we try to look at our habits and change something? What is it that we are doing? We need to address this more carefully. Remember that if we continue living life in automatic mode, as an automaton, we are not being rational, we are not being sentient. And Jesus said that many will come in through the wide door. But when we find ourselves inside, we realize that there is an even wider door as an exit. So we go in and we come out very quickly. We never stay in the kingdom of heaven. Because, to paraphrase another lesson from the gospel, we go in, but we are not dressed accordingly. We do not have the tools to remain there because we are constantly creating the same conditions with our predispositions and finding the triggers, whether it's for a disease or even a bad behavior. A bad behavior is a disease in a sense. It's a disease of the mind, a behavioral dysfunction, but it is a disease as well in that sense. And what are we doing? So if we now pay more attention to our spiritual bodies, we'll be able to address the causes, and then that same spiritual body will relay back the information to our physical body. So we can change habits, we can change our approach to things. The door, as I mentioned, is very wide, and when we go through that very wide door into the kingdom of heaven, we find an exit door that is even wider. So we don't stay, and we would like to stay. We would like to go through the narrow door, and the narrow door requires us to work, requires us to be useful, to be always improving ourselves. And a way of improving ourselves is to observe what we do, is to observe and look for the causes of what happens to us, or the causes of what we set in motion. And these causes are in our spirit, in our specifically in our spiritual body, and we need to address them. Otherwise, as I said, we'll continue to repeat the mistakes, which will be the equivalent of going through the wide door and out through an even wider one. We must follow our guidelines. No four words are more important than pray and be vigilant. Pray because we all fail at our level of understanding. We have difficulties understanding the smallest things. Of our current level of evolution, we still have a lot to learn. So we still need to pray. Pray so that we are guided by those who have our best interests at heart. And we have to be vigilant. Vigilant because as students of behavior, we make mistakes and sometimes we don't even realize them. So we need to be vigilant so as not to make the same mistake over and over again. Be vigilant so that we will not fall in pitfalls or traps set by spirits who are even more ignorant than we are. This time is crucial for all of us. Humanity is experiencing nothing more than the consequences of our evolution. Not good, not bad, just consequences. God does not want his children to suffer. God wants us all to reach perfection. It's quite the opposite. So we are the ones who have to change something to correct what is leading to all of this that right now makes us so tense, makes us so disturbed, so insecure. What can we each do? And the reason we have the studies is exactly that, to guide us towards work. Only work will assist us. Only a useful, an educational use of our faculties will lead us to change behavior. So I hope that this has helped you understanding a little bit more about the intricacies between the spiritual body and the physical body. Why is it so important for us to address that physical body? and also that spiritual body, not just the physical one, because the physical one is more immediate, yes, important, yes, again, but it has, it's only the consequences, the effects of what is actually related in the spiritual one. If we go back to that particular lesson that I mentioned to you at the very beginning of the great physician of souls, that is in the Gospel, chapter 6, Christ the Consoler, we now see the end. If we do our part, if we work, we have and we become humble and submissive to the Creator, we will keep His divine law. And we need to keep His divine law, not just study it. It's very easy to study and put the book back on the shelf. We need to practice it. We need to love, pray, be gentle to the spirits of the Lord. In other words, be gentle to the other children of the same Father, and call unto them from the bottom of our hearts. Address them with consolation, with words of wisdom, with a smile, with words that are always uplifting. And then when we do that, if we do that, then He, the Lord, will send His beloved Son to instruct us and to say these goodly words: I am come because you called me. So we are not without consolation. We are not alone. The spirits of the Lord are here with us. The legions of spirits are all around us at a time of difficulty. But it's at times like this that we raise our shields of pride and push all the assistance away, because we have no forbearance, no understanding. And we should have this forbearance, this understanding. We should pray in gratitude that we are here. Yes, gratitude. That we are housebound. Yes, but look at the marvel that technology can bring to us and the ability that we can see one another. Pray in gratitude, because if we are here, we are not at work, most of us. And even if we are at work, you're still having the time to look at the lecture or to look at a discussion. So you should be grateful as well. Grateful because of all the upheaval, all the commotion, all the things, the tension we are going through. We revert back to the basics. Where are we? At home with the family. We are back to that which is the nucleus of society, a nucleus that has been neglected in the last few decades considerably. So perhaps we should take this time to look around those who are right next to us. Because if there is one thing that we are sure of, that we are in the homes we are supposed to be, surrounded by those that we need at this moment in our evolutionary scale, in our evolutionary timeline. These are the individuals, like it or not, who are going to assist us to progress. So we, to borrow the words from this particular lesson, we should be gentle to them, pray with them, and love them. And perhaps when we come out of all of this problem, we'll understand a little more about each other, because we will have had the time to know a little bit more. And if we implement these knowledge in our daily routine, we will have changed ourselves somewhat, somehow. We will have implemented these modifications into our spiritual bodies. And the next time around, when we see the same individuals, it will be with even more joy, more happiness. And we perhaps, in associating better, will take care of predispositions that we have and will make our next reincarnations even better journeys, if possible. This is what I had to bring to you. I will just now say a prayer for us to finish it, and then we can have questions. Is that okay, João?
Yes, sure. Go ahead.
Okay. Heavenly Father, who art in heaven, we here address you at a moment when most of us are in need of explanations, are in need of assistance. And we beseech you, Father, for this assistance. We beseech you for the company of your emissaries who come to us to bring us protection. And we ask, Father, that your will be done here on earth as it is carried out in heaven. We ask that you strengthen and encourage us, that you give us the eyes to see, the ears to listen, that your emissaries stay with us, be with us at all times. And we hope from the bottom of our hearts that our pride may not become a barrier to them, to the assistance that they so freely bring to us. We want to work, Father. We are the workers of the last hour. We are aware of this, and we ask for work so that your vineyard may be even more beautiful, even greener, with the help of our hands. Assist us, Father, in protecting our physical bodies. Assist us in protecting our spirits from the assault of our brothers and sisters who, even more ignorant than we are, cannot understand that progress can only be made in social context. That progress is the product of our mutual assistance, of charity, of benevolence, of understanding. So we ask you, Father, to remove the temptation away from us, to protect us today and always. Yours is the glory, the power, the creation, forever and ever. Thank you, everyone, for your presence and for the invitation.
So if anyone has any questions, please feel free to unmute your phones and ask the questions. I'll start, Julio. It's very interesting that Time Magazine today, the first headline from Time Magazine is that the coronavirus pandemic may be causing an anxiety pandemic, which is, you know, the subject of your lecture is really the opposition of anxiety, which is serenity, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you see that is already out there what this pandemic is causing, right?
Exactly. I think one of the problems we have is that all of us are very resilient to change. And one of the things that the pandemic is forcing us is to reevaluate our way of life, society as a whole. No one is saying that we are going to throw away everything. It's not that. It's not all or none. But it will require certain adjustments. It has already required adjustments that were more immediate. But the adjustments that are going to come will benefit humanity tremendously. But we have to make them, we have to implement them. As I said, God doesn't want any of his children to suffer. It's not that. But we create conditions in our lives as a society, not this person or that person. This is not general blame. It's humanity's way of going about its business, okay? Going about its development, its evolution. We create situations that every now and again reacts back to us, and we have to deal with it. And throughout the history of humankind, we see that whenever we address this and we made adjustments, yes, we came out of it stronger, and we came out of it more fraternal, with greater solidarity. So the anxiety is exactly that, the fear of the unknown and the fear of having to change, because we are very resilient, all of us. But we need to be more like something I forgot to mention, unfortunately. We need to be more like our spiritual bodies, pliable. Pliable. Our spiritual bodies are pliable. This is why they learn so quickly while the physical body is still operating everything, manifesting, expressing everything. We need to be a little more pliable ourselves in our emotions, in our habits, because otherwise we'll always have these anxiety attacks. Whenever something very small rushes against our way of thinking, we'll always have this feeling.
Anyone else?
May I propose a question? I don't know if you guys, are you actually hearing me?
Yes.
Good. Your presentation was brilliant. I really admire the way you so clearly define concepts and you assemble your explanations. One question though, the natural law, actually the law of destruction, it talks about the flagellos. I don't really know how to precisely translate flagello in English, maybe scourge, I don't know. What I ask is, Is this that we are experiencing with the coronavirus, could it be considered a flagella or a scourge? And if yes, what are your thoughts about the reason why it came about now, and should we behave in a specific way under the guidance of Spiritism in regard to this scourge?
Okay. One of the things we have to be a little careful is these things are always happening. They have always happened. And the difference is that nowadays, humanity has never traveled so much, moved from point A to point B. And if you look at entire history, what we have been doing in terms of population movement is amazing. And this, whenever we're talking about something that can be, that is airborne, that it can be passed just by very small particulates or droplets in the air, is a recipe for greater numbers. But if we remember carefully, we had the avian flu, we had SARS. Actually, COVID-19 is a form of respiratory syndrome. So if we look very carefully in the past 20, 22 years, we've had every single year a small epidemic. It did not get to the point that it got this time. It is very difficult for us to say if it's a scourge because we are in it. And whenever you are inside, you cannot tell where it ends, where the limitations are. So I would refrain from saying scourge right now. I think the question is great. And whether it's a scourge or not, only time and historians will be able to tell us, because then they will have the definite numbers, and the numbers will not be colored by the anxiety, by political maneuvers or economical issues and this and that. They'll be seeing the problem from a bird's eye view, from a different perspective. What can we do if it's a scourge or not? We can do what Paul the Apostle told the Corinthians, the church of Corinthus. The church was undergoing a lot of problems at the time. This is, 40, 50, the year 40, 50 of the Common Era. And the church, there was a lot of people and that were having different ideas, dissensions. And this is actually the whole book, Our Daily Bread, is based on this, which we just started just before this. We had to stop the physical meetings. And Paul the Apostle sent an epistle to the Corinthians saying, all of you are amazing individuals with your own specific abilities. Go and work on what you do best. Work in this case, under these circumstances, like the horse that cannot see to the sides, only the road ahead, and shoulders the cargo, shoulders the load, pulls the load. In other words, we are all capable of doing something amazing with our abilities. Let us do it, whatever it is. I'm not saying save the world or this or that. No, the small things that we do in our daily lives that make us so special. Let us work, because in working, we will be keeping our minds with serenity. That serenity will translate into positive vibrations to our spiritual bodies, which will, as we saw today, will transform and continue this process. All of us are capable of doing amazing things. Let us do it. Let us occupy ourselves with whatever it is that we can do. History will have a time and a moment to realize whether it's going to be a scourge or not.
I just like to, if it will allow me to add something. I have been hearing a lot people mentioning about punishment, which is the meaning of scourge as well. However, it would be helpful if we kept in mind that plagues, diseases have always existed. And from the point of many scientists, plagues, diseases have helped humanity progress because of them, different types of medicines, vaccines, um, ways of doing, cleaning, even washing hands were implemented, were discovered. And those ways have helped us to live longer. And the human population has increased due to those facts. So we should also keep that in mind. If
Yes, diseases have always worked side by side with us. Diseases, actually, I would say the pathogens are always there. Diseases are simply when the pathogen finds conditions and come to our side, affect somehow the way we live, the way we behave. So they've always been with us, and we have always been very innovative. But we had to have the pressure to do this innovation. I think for us spiritists, one of the most important things that I would say is not to say things such as, oh, God willed such a thing, because God does not will disaster. God does not will suffering for his children. Our world, our physical world, is the result of our actions, the combined results of all the billions of people here and of the spirits that are now in the spiritual realm throughout all the time that we have been on this planet. So when we try to say this, and God did this, or willed this, or it came from this place or that place, this form of assigning blame is not helpful. It actually creates a lot of animosity, and we should always try to avoid it. We are here. If I go into a lake or a pond where the water is completely stagnant and I swim in it, the lake is teeming with bacteria and parasites and protozoa. If I now come out of it and I develop something, I cannot blame the lake or the parasite or the microorganism. This is the same thing for everything in life. Diseases, or like I said, the pathogens have always been next to us. They have evolved next to us. They are part of the creation. And perhaps what we did at this moment was lower our guard to such an extent that they found an opportunity. And that opportunity ended up being a pandemic. We will not be able to solve it ourselves. What we can do is keep our minds serene. What we can do is do our best to follow the guidelines of trustworthy sources. What we can do is not foment even more stress, foment even more chaos. And if we have to cut down on a few things for a while, we will do it. Like I said, perhaps this is an opportunity for all of us to reevaluate our habits.
Júlio,
Oi, Ana.
this is for some people, uncomfortable moment to just feel a bit useless, right, or a bit unproductive. Or some of us are able to work from home, but still our work seems a bit less relevant these days. Can you explain a little bit about how we can be also useful in terms of making ourselves available to meditate, to pray, to donate our energies, our fluids to the people in need? For example, when we're sleeping, we know our spirits are busy doing other things. They're able to be busy doing other more productive things.
Mm-hmm.
So how can we also use this opportunity to work, but work in spiritual form, to be supportive of the people that are suffering, all this very anxious brothers and sisters that perhaps they need somebody to talk to, but during the day when we're awake, it's not convenient, or it's difficult to access it when we sleep. How can we do that and make ourselves available?
This is actually very, it's a good question, but it's very personal because, like I said, we all have our abilities. We all know what we do best, and we also know the ones that we cannot do very well. All right. So it's difficult to create a roster. You do this, you do that, and the other one do the third thing, and so on and so forth. But you already gave some ideas. Some people need to talk. You talk to them on the phone or on the internet or what we're doing right now. I have a friend here in the building. She has a little kid, a 5-year-old, and the neighbors, their immediate neighbor, is also has a 5-year-old, and it's very difficult to get a 5-year-old to understand that they can no longer go and play with with their friends. So the two families decided to quarantine themselves together. They quarantine in the sense of to become housebound together. So she is teaching the two kids math. The other person is teaching the kids, I don't know what, I think it's like Spanish or something like that. So you see, we find things that before we never did. And why is that? Because perhaps one of the things that we have to evaluate is, what is it that we call productive? What does it mean? I think that we are very, 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 we're not very productive, that we're very, we work very badly, I would say. Very badly indeed. And we have an idea of productivity that really doesn't bring anything to us as moral beings. For instance, productivity is measured by the end result, the end product. Now, I'm not saying to go into a chaotic system where there are no deadlines. No, it's not that. Have to be very careful. But when we only measure by the end product, what we see is that we go into heaven through the wide door, because it means that most of us will do anything and run roughshod over anything and anyone to get to that end product. This is why I say we get to heaven through the wide door and we come out of it very quickly, because there's a even wider door as an exit. We have to become a society where we evaluate and praise more how we do things, how we get to these end results. And I think this is the time to do so, when everyone has been forced to slow down somehow. But in terms of finding things to do, well, I would say you have closets. Everybody has closets. Just pick one closet, tear it down, and decide it. Perhaps you will see how blessed we are to have so many clothes that we probably have there that we haven't used in years, or shoes, or I don't know, bric-a-bracs that we never even put outside anymore to decorate a table. We can find something later on, an opportunity to donate these items, or just clean the closet. Or we can cook together. Most families nowadays don't even sit anymore to have a meal together. Or when they do, the TV is on. So these are times for us, like I said, to revert to the basics. We are going back to the nuclear point, to the nucleus of society, which is the home, the family. Most of us are housebound with other people. So this is the time. That alone should take a lot of our effort.
Okay. So we already went over a little bit, but we still have time if someone has one last question. So before we close.
Hi, hi Julia, it's Laura.
Oh, hi, Laura.
There's a question inside the Zoom group chat from Ruth, and the question is, do we learn only when we are
Incarnated.
It says, I have incarcerated here.
Incarnated.
Probably reincarnated.
She's there.
The short answer is no, because the long one is a little more elaborate. We always learn. We learn when we are in the spiritual realm, and we learn here in the physical realm. I'm going to answer this not as a general answer, but specific to our level of development, our level of evolution. Right now, reincarnation is a must for all of us. It's mandatory. We cannot avoid it. So it is here that we are truly tested. Because it is here that we are truly tested, we have a tendency to incorporate the lessons more while we are here in the physical realm. We have lessons in the spiritual realm. We interact, we learn there too. If I were to say to you, oh, we don't learn in the spiritual realm, then you would probably ask me, well, how can you explain André Luis? André Luis learned in the spiritual realm and then relayed that to us. Okay, so we have to be very careful. But at our level of evolution, we implement the lessons, we incorporate them more, let's say, with less difficulty when we are here on Earth. Because here on Earth is when you have to commute and someone elbows you in the subway. Well, when we used to pack, right? Or someone steps on your toes. It's where, for instance, you can have a superior and in the office or at work that is condescending, that tests your patience, that is racist. So it is here. When we go back to the spiritual realm and we are among the benefactors and we are learning, we're studying there, that is the ideal situation. So it's a lot more difficult there to put to the test the lessons that we get. But like I said, now at our level of understanding. As we evolve more and more, we need the physicality or the physical realm less and less, until we reach a point where we will exist from what we know today without a physicality, just as the spiritual body and the essence, which we call the spirit. And we'll be learning everything in the spiritual realm. But we are far from it at the moment. Did I address it, Laura?
Yes. Yes, you did, Julio. Thank you. Thank you all for joining us. I just want to remind you that we have 3 study groups a week. Every Tuesdays at noon Eastern Time, Spiritism at noon. Thursdays at 6:30 p.m. we study the Spirit's book at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And then at 7:30 we are studying the book Heaven and Hell. And then on Sundays at 11 a.m. every week we have a different subject, either a study of a book or a lecture. This coming Sunday we are going to study the book In the Greater World of André Luiz, is the book that we are studying. And we will post through the email the details on the chapter and everything. Okay, so thank you all for joining us. I'm going to invite Carol. Can you do the final prayer for us? You're there, Carol?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Infinite Creator, all goodness and grace, we are truly grateful for the opportunity that we share today and in the future together through telecommunication and phone links. We are grateful for each and every person doing their part, especially with the guidance of the spiritual benefactors, the good spirits, the healing energy of those in the spirit world. We are truly grateful for all the blessings that we have received today and will continue to receive. May we be blessed in every way, but may we share this with others who are in need. May we reach out in a way that is helpful through a phone call, through a chat, through an email. And may we continue with our studies and our mindfulness throughout the week. May we use this time to bring in a greater serenity, a greater balance, a greater understanding of what it is that we can share with others, the gifts that we all have. And as we close this meeting today, we give thanks to Julio and to John and those who have participated for this marvelous experience. We close now and ask for continued blessings, continued peace, and we give thanks to all who have participated. Go forth now as beacons of light. Go forth in peace. So be it.
Thank you. Thank you all.